everybody. Let's see. So I think that, I will call the Superintendency Union number 3 to order at 5:19. And if the other chairs would like to call their committees into order, please.
I'll call the Northborough Southborough Regional School Committee into order at 5:19.
I'll call the Southborough School Committee to order at 5:19.
And I'll call the Northborough School Committee to order, same time, 5:20.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So, and I'm going to read the statement that we need to read these days. So, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. Excuse me, this meeting of the Northborough School Committee, Southborough School Committee, Northborough Southborough Regional School Committee, and Superintendency Union number 3 school committees will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the district website at link mentioned in the agenda. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. NCAT Educational Channel, Verizon Channel 29/Charter Channel 194, or SAM Government Channel, Verizon Channel 37/Charter Channel 192. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the district website an or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so we are in session. The first item on the agenda is audience sharing. And I just wanted to sort of remind members and also the audience that during the audience sharing segment of our meeting, this is a means of taking concerns and feedback from our constituents so that we and our superintendent can better understand and serve them. It allows the audience an opportunity to voice their concerns or questions or feedback. At the same time, we as school committee members do not initiate dialogue or answer questions posed during the audience sharing portion of the meeting itself. We also would ask that audience members try to keep their comments to a reasonable length during this section of the agenda. And if there are any lengthier statements to be made, we are always happy to take that feedback over email or another means. So is there anybody who would like to share during audience sharing?
So through the chair, it looks like Alyssa
Yes.
Degum, who is the president of NSPAC, has her hand up just for her presentation of for NSPAC later on in the agenda.
Okay. Okay. So I don't see any other hands up.
That's accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we might not have any audience sharing. Okay. So then we will move along to action on minutes. And looking at the agenda and this list, we have some motion gymnastics to do. I think, again, we should do this probably by committee. I know they're broken down for us on one of these documents by committee. So is there a committee that wants to get this? I think each chair should probably handle it. So somebody want to get this rolling with their committee and work through all of the, all of that committee's minutes. And then we'll
Through the
Roger,
chair.
yeah, do you have a different idea? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I have a different idea. So I noticed that where we have, say, 4 different committees acting on, I guess if 4 different committees are acting on a group of minutes, several dates, then I guess one, I don't know, maybe there's no easy way to do this. I was thinking one committee could move to approve. They could get a second, and then the other committees could so move if that was their choice, get seconds, and then everybody could just vote. I think we have to do a roll call vote on everything anyway, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think if we did it that way, we'd end up doing 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 different rounds.
All right, well,
But that's fine. I don't know. What do the chairs want to do? I was thinking that somebody, for example, from Southborough could look at the list and just move to approve all of the minutes for Southborough, and then there's a vote on that. And then a separate motion on approving and releasing the various executive session minutes that apply to Southborough. And then Southborough's done, but, and so on and so forth through the committees. But we can do it.
I would also, I think either way would work. It sounds like your big batch would be a bit more efficient. And efficiency is always good. So whoever goes first just has to read all those off. I would also suggest that if there's any corrections, we can actually take those prior to avoid having to amend motions. Just for efficiency and streamlining as well. But we could perhaps hear from Mrs. Frank on how she thinks we should handle the motions here. It's a lot of minutes. You're muted, Joan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I could try doing it for the regional school committee, and maybe I will try reading them and then asking for a motion, or if somebody from the region would like to do it, and then see if there's any corrections to those. And then I'd like to take the regional school committee vote, and then we'll be done with the minutes and then go to the next committee. So can I give it a try?
That sounds fine to me.
Okay, so from the region, is there anyone that would like to put a motion in place, or do you like me to read them out? Whoever makes the motion would have to read A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and that would be it.
Joan, through the chair, so following up on Keith's comment, would it be appropriate for you to ask if any of your committee members are going to have any suggested amendments? Before
I think we have to have the motion on the table first.
Yeah, fair
We have
enough.
a motion on the table first.
Fair enough.
So I can
Okay.
try doing it if you want.
So, okay, Paul Becker,
So someone interrupt me if I'm going down the wrong path here, but I think what I just heard is I should make a motion that the regional school committee vote to approve the action on the combined open meeting minutes of June 24th and August 5th, that they vote to approve and release the action on the combined executive session minutes of June 24th, 2020, that they vote to approve the minutes on the action on the combined special open meeting minutes of August 25th, that they vote to approve the action on the combined special open meeting minutes of August 5th, August 6th, August 11th, August 12th, and that they vote to approve and release the minutes on the action on the combined special meeting executive session minutes of August 5th, August 6th, August 11th.
great job, Paul. Okay,
I'll
is there a
second.
second
Great
by
job.
Paul Desmond? For the region, is there any correction to any of these minutes that the motion was just made for and seconded? Seeing that there are none, this will be a roll call vote to accept those minutes. Karen Ayers,
Yes.
Paul Bucca,
Yes.
Chris Covino,
Abstain.
Paul Desmond,
Yes.
Kathleen Howland's absent, Kathy Key,
Yes.
Dan Calendar is late. Sean O'Shea,
Yes.
Kathleen Pelechko,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The region has approved and all those minutes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Nice work.
Yeah.
So I guess, I guess I will go ahead and move for the union. So I will move that Superintendent's Union number 3 vote to approve the combined open minute meetings of June 24th, and the combined special open meeting minutes of August 5th, 2020. And I guess we're combining the approve and release. So to approve and release the executive session of June 24th, 2020, to approve the special open meeting minutes of August 25th, 2020, and to approve the joint open meeting minutes of August 27th, 2020.
Okay.
Second for the union.
Okay, great. Is there any discussion?
Who seconded for the union?
Joni,
Joan.
I'm sorry?
Joan,
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so for the union, for those minutes, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, then we'll take a roll call vote for the union. Jessica,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes,
Joan,
yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Keith,
Yes.
and it's a yes from me. So that takes care of this, of the Superintendent's Union number 3 minutes. We have Northborough and Southborough left.
Chairman LaBelle?
Yes, I would, it might be worth noting that Northborough and Southborough are actually the same. So I don't know if we could
We should still take a separate vote by each committee.
vote, yes, but could we so move a motion based on the same language, or would that not be advised?
I think we could.
Okay.
I don't see an issue with that. I don't know if anyone else does, but
It's the
I
same
would argue
motion.
you could even piggyback on Paul Butker's motion and just add the ones that are specific to Northborough and Southborough.
I'll split the difference. I'll kick us off for Northborough. How's that? So I move that the Northborough School Committee approve the combined open meeting minutes of June 24th, 2020, the combined special open meeting minutes of August 5th, 2020, and to approve and release the combined executive session minutes of June 24th, 2020, to approve the action of the combined special open meeting minutes of August 25th, 2020, to approve the action on the joint open meeting minutes of August 27th, 2020, to approve the combined special open meeting minutes of August 5th, 2020, and to approve the combined special open meeting minutes of August 6th, as well as the combined special open meeting minutes of August 11th, as well as the joint special open meeting minutes of August 12th, 2020, to approve and release the combined special meeting executive session minutes of August 5th, 2020, as well as the combined special meeting executive session minutes of August 6th, 2020, as well as combined special meeting executive session minutes of August 11th, 2020. And to also approve the joint special open meeting minutes of July 29th, 2020, the joint special open meeting minutes of August 26th, 2020, 5 p.m., the joint special open meeting minutes of August 6th, 2020, 5:30 p.m., and to also approve and release the joint special meeting executive session minutes of July 29th, 2020, and the joint special meeting executive session minutes of August 26th, 2020, 5 p.m.
I'll second that motion. Lauren Bailey Jones.
are you suggesting that Southborough put a motion on the floor and second it before you vote, Keith? Or do you want to actually take the vote first and then we'll so move?
Why don't you move while it's fresh?
Is it okay for you to move, to make the motion, Keith, though, because you're a chair, or does that not
It
matter?
is.
'Cause you did the
Yep.
big thing?
I'm a
Okay,
participating member. Yep.
okay,
Good
gotcha.
question.
Keith, I
So-
think we should take it by, do Northborough first. If you made a motion and it's seconded, if there's no other further discussion, you should take the vote. And then Southborough can just tag on to what we just said.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Either way, I'm trying to avoid reading the entire list again. So is there any correction or discussion regarding, we have a motion and a second. So is there any correction or discussion regarding this motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote for this motion on behalf of the Northborough School Committee. Mrs. Frank,
Yes,
Mrs. Bailey Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett,
Yes,
Mrs. Tagliaferri,
Yes.
and myself, Keith LaBelle, yes. The motion passes unanimously and all the minutes are approved and or released as moved.
So I have a question for Southborough. I notice that, and I don't know if this is a typo. I noticed that, I can see where the cursor is right now, that Southborough is not included in the list for approving the combined special open meeting minutes of August 25th. Is that a typo, or were we really not at that meeting?
Let's check.
Those minutes were approved at our last South.
Okay, okay, so we have already approved those minutes
Yes.
in Southborough? Okay. So I'm going to try this, and if anyone objects, please. I will entertain a motion as put forth by the Northborough School Committee meeting on, as far as action on these minutes, with the exception of any action on the combined special open meeting minutes of August 25th, 2020, which means I would look for a so move, and then I would look for a second.
So moved.
I didn't see it. Is that Kamali?
Molly.
Okay,
Mhm.
I'll second Jen.
okay. Does anyone have, you know, I guess any discussion on this? All right, then this is a roll call vote. Kamali,
Yes.
Katura,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so then it's unanimous.
Okay. Well done, everyone.
Couture,
Yes.
point of order.
Yeah.
Can Greg just make sure that Kathleen Highland, she just sent me a text and said that she is on to the meeting at 5:31 PM. So can Greg just make sure she's there?
Yes, we'll keep a lookout for her.
I promoted Kathleen.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
I'm here. Sorry to be late, but glad to be here.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay, welcome. All right, so the minutes are taken care of. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the NSPAC presentation.
So I just want to welcome Alyssa Degon and just take a minute and thank NSPAC for all the great work that they have done in the past and they're planning for this upcoming academic year. It is truly a important partnership that we have. And I just want to thank Alyssa and NSPAC for all their work over the years, as well as what will take place this year. Typically, this presentation takes place at the end of a fiscal year, so in June. But as a result of the pandemic, Alyssa is here this evening to do a year in review for 2019 and 2020. So welcome.
Thanks, Greg. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, just making sure. Lots of tech glitches today, so. Thanks everyone for having me. As Greg said, we're doing this a little later than usual. So if we can move on to the next slide. So I just want to welcome our new board members this year. So we have Johanna Shaner as our recording secretary, Kim Tollender as communications coordinator, and Lisa Jackman as treasurer. It's a really good team, and I'm really excited for all of our new recruits this year, which was especially hard given we were recruiting in the middle of a quarantine time and no one had extra time. And thanks to Liz Nolan, Veronica Frada, and Heather Bear for all their help last year. So I'm sure you guys are very familiar with NSPAC, but just as a reminder and sort of an update, our group is here to support and facilitate all of the families on IEPs and 504 plans across the 3 districts, and then to work with student support services and the school district on anything that comes up that we think is a systemic issue that we can help change, or suggestions that we have, or anything we see that's happening with our audience that we don't feel the district is either aware of or that we have other ideas for. So this year we have 898 students in IEPs and 483 students on 504 plans. So it's a pretty good population that we're working with. One of the other things we do is we do work with other CPACs in surrounding towns. So we co-sponsor events with them, and we also are able to reach out to them to get ideas for how we should proceed. Next page, please. So looking back over the last year, one of our biggest accomplishments was, actually the year before, we were awarded the NEF grant for $2,500 for the Understanding Differences Disability Awareness Through Literature grant, which allowed Northborough middle and elementary schools to purchase materials for their libraries that support awareness of special needs. But this past spring, we also were able to get an SEF award for $2,525. So this very much mirrors what NEF awarded. It's a very similar program, and we're really, really excited. A lot of the materials in our libraries were very updated with really old wording and, not the most up-to-date stuff that we want our kids to, to be aware of when they're learning about their peers and the world around them. So this is really exciting. More information from the past year. We did a lot of work supporting our families. We met regularly with Marie and team. Thank you so much. To address students' needs. As I said, we work with regional CPACs to share information. We also are part of or support the Friends of Special Education Facebook group, which is sort of a social group for parents of special needs kids in the district. And then for communications last year, we were able to work with the district to have them create their very own one-call system so that we could more easily reach our niche audience of special needs parents for all the communications we needed to get out to our audience. The website was updated, press releases, group emails, district calendar updates. We sort of would get out there as any way we could last year. We also ran we tried to run our 10th Go the Distance Awards last year. The ceremony was going to be in April, so we were not able to hold the ceremony, but we did have 29 recipients of the award, so it was successful. We were able to recognize a lot of faculty and some people in the community as well who really affect our students and really help them out during the year. And it's always a great event. It's too bad we had to miss it last year. We also were able to host a fair amount of speakers last year, covering everything from insurance, for special needs insurance. We always do an annual basic rights evening. So the Federation of Children with Special Needs grants us basically a free basic rights seminar once a year. We had special needs estate planning. We had Colleen Ferguson from the district speak with some parents about assistive technology, which was really awesome. We also had Cheryl Ryan Chan do a presentation that was co-sponsored at the Northborough Library, and we had a lot of people come out for that one. And also a local attorney in town, Abra Luxembourg, was able to do a presentation about special needs rights during quarantine. Right now we are running, so normally we run our annual survey in the spring, but since we knew nobody could focus on anything in the spring besides getting through the school year, we decided to hold off, and we just launched it last week. And the point of the survey is to help us as planners, as officers, figure out, what our parents are most interested in and what is going on and anything we've done well over the past year or not. So right now, as the survey is running, we're seeing a couple things come up. One of the major parent concerns that almost every parent wrote about was hoping to get adequate support during remote learning this fall, especially. A couple of other little things: inconsistency of programs across districts. For instance, Northborough students are shipped to Southborough for Castle and then back to Northborough, and those kinds of issues we hear about all the time. And there's reasons for why these programs shift, but even so, it is something that affects our parents. And then a big one that's going to be coming up, and Marie, we already have a meeting planned to talk about this, is compensatory services. And then some of our biggest topics for future events are not at all surprising. We've got ADHD, autism, executive function, life skills, and IEP 504. So those will probably be some of the major speakers that we're focusing on for this coming year. So in looking forward to this school year, so first I would like to note that our Facebook group reaches about 200 members, which is not a lot considering, as I mentioned before, how many students are on IEPs and 504s across our districts. So this summer, we worked and created our own newsletter, and we've already got 445 subscribers, and we've sent out about 5 communications already. And this has been a really good way for us to say, hey, parents, we know you're getting this communication and that. This is what we've heard. This is when this is coming through. And it's been a really good way to directly communicate with our parents. So instead of having them, sort of spin out with comments and confusion on Facebook, which is something that can happen, we're able to say, this is what the district told us, and we can reach parents definitively. So that's been incredible. Some of the other major things we really want to focus on is to continue to engage with the district, with families and school committee. I'd like to mention that this past spring and summer, we were really fortunate to be able to meet with the district and our school committee liaisons, many, and Marie and the whole team, almost every other week throughout quarantine and over the summer. So we were really, we felt really heard. We were able to report, anything that was going on, any concerns, help get timelines down. And we really appreciated having that attention and support during this, this really difficult transitional time. So we'd like to thank everyone for that. We'd like to continue to work collaboratively with the district to continue to streamline and improve our communication. As I mentioned already, we have our new NSPAC newsletter. Anyone who doesn't get it can feel free to sign up. We're going to do a speaker series. We'll continue monthly member meetings. So this is a good way for us to build community with our members. And we've launched a new section of our NSPAC website. We call it nspac.org/COVID. And that's where we house all of our most up-to-date information about, anything that's going on with COVID and the schools, and hopefully more to come. So this sort of just recaps how different ways you can connect with us. Our new email newsletter, we'll have a lot of events, and we, of course, always have our Facebook page as well. And that is it. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that presentation.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or comments before we move on?
I would like to make a comment if I could, please.
Yes, Kathleen.
So I have a big heart for the NSPAC and the heavy lifting that parents do in our community. You know, as a speech therapist and a music therapist, I wanted to do this work. I schooled to do this work. I was informed how to do this work. And for the parents, it's always an uphill battle. And Alyssa, that you said that you felt really heard warms the cockles of my heart. And of all of the words that you just said, that phrase means everything to me. And I congratulate Marie and her team for being able to do that, and for the persistence and the advocacy that the NSPAC leadership shows. I am really grateful to be the liaison, and thank you all for those 3 words.
Thanks, Kathleen. I appreciate it.
If I could just say a couple words also. I've attended a number of the NSPAC meetings. And the thing that has impressed me a lot is the partnership that seems to exist between the district and NSPAC, with with both groups in some ways acting as one group at times, and trying to work together, to move forward, okay, in this area. So it's really impressive it's been very impressive for me to just see that I guess willingness to work together to basically solve challenges. And there are challenges, as everyone knows, and they're not easy ones. But I really appreciate that.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, Katura, I have a question. This is Kamali. Alyssa, I'm curious about the volume of students on the IEP and 504 plans. Do you know if that's what percentage increase that is, or maybe you just know individual numbers approximately? Or has it, or would you say it's remained pretty flat?
No, it definitely increases every year. I think it might have gone up by about 100 IEPs. That might be a little inflated, but I know it's definitely, when I updated the numbers, I remember thinking like, oh, definitely have more. Yes. So it's not at all consistent year to year.
Okay.
So Marie I think
Marie.
also Marie can speak to the percentages in each district as well.
Mhm.
Yes, so it does move a little bit every year, and a lot of that depends on, we have move-ins, families that move in from from other towns, and they do choose our town because of the services that we do provide to our students. We have quite a good selection of services that we offer our students. We are within approximately the state average for the percentages of students on IEPs. It can range anywhere from 12% to about 18% statewide, and we are mostly within that range. Northborough is a little bit higher in the low 20s, but our other districts are in the teens range.
The follow-up question is just because I'm still, new-ish, is what implications do those increases year over year have towards, our classrooms and the educators that are, and the paras that are being hired, et cetera. Is that, I guess maybe that's actually going to be part of what's shown in the strategic plan later. Maybe there's a subsection or a call out for that.
So Do you want me to take this one, Greg?
Sure. I mean, I can just speak to the fact that, when we look at our, our student population and the needs and staffing, as part of the budget process, we really look closely at, what are the needs of our students, what types of levels of support are needed to provide this level of services required. This is a key part of our budget conversation each fall, and we adjust accordingly. Over the past several years, we've added special education liaisons and special education teachers to support students, as well as behavioral specialists, school psychologists. So we've really done a nice job trying to support students who receive special education services. It's really part of our budget process, and we look at caseloads and needs and adjust accordingly.
Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you again. We appreciate the presentation, and
Sorry,
I'm glad
raise
we.
my hand. If
Oh,
I
I'm
could-
sorry, Paul, did you have something to say?
Just a question again, Marie,
Yeah.
on that math. So I thought I saw that there were about 850 IEPs at the beginning of Alyssa's presentation. If that's 12% of the population, I mean, that would imply we've got like 7,000 kids in the systems. That seems like a big number to me. Is that accurate? Am I doing my math wrong, or?
It's the percentage is different per district. So in Northborough, we're about 22%. In Southborough, the last time I checked, we were anywhere. It depends on building to building too. So overall, we were about 14%.
Okay, so we're much higher than across the board. We're higher than the state 12% number.
The state runs anywhere from 12 to 17%.
Okay.
So we are a little bit higher in Northborough,
So
and a little bit higher in the region.
So the number that Alyssa gave us is our, in fact, individual students, 850 or so.
All
individual
three
students
districts.
In the 3 districts.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I have a question for Anne Marie.
Sure, Joan.
Anne Marie, you gave us the numbers for Northborough and Southborough. What would be the percentage for region?
You mean me?
Yes.
Marie?
Oh, okay. I don't remember. I don't have that figure right now, but the last time I checked, it was in the low 20s, 20%, like
Okay,
21%. But I can get those for you. We just have to run a report.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate it if you could. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
So I'll just add that on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website, there is district profiles that as a data set around special education students, staffing, and so forth. That is a great resource, and it also does a historical look back and also does a comparison to the state. And you can also compare like districts. So it's a great resource, and I will share that link out tomorrow with the committee members. So if they want to dive in a little bit deeper, they actually can do some analysis.
That would be great. That sounds like a great resource. Okay, any other questions or comments on this? All right, sounds like we're all set. Thank you again very much, Alyssa, for that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the music study group. I think I just heard somebody ring a triangle. Was that it? Is that an introduction?
I'll provide a brief introduction. And first of all, I want to thank Rhoda Webb and her leadership. Last year, as you know, she served as the interim assistant superintendent, did a marvelous job. And as part of her work, she led a music study group. At the beginning of the 2019-2020 year, we brought together a team of educators, community members to really look at our music program in our district and to highlight the program strengths, identify growth opportunities, and make recommendations for the next 3 to 5 years, including any budgetary implications. So this evening, Rhoda Webb and the team is here to present the music study group's findings and answer any questions. And the theme really is carrying over the work from 2019 to 2020. This presentation was supposed to take place in June of last year, but again, the pandemic has shifted everything forward. So welcome, Rhoda, and also welcome music study group members. And Rhoda, I did give you the co-hosting ability, so you can share your screen.
Wonderful. Good evening. It is with great pleasure that I am presenting on behalf of the Music Study Group, our year-long study of pre-K through 12 music study group, and reporting to you in the name of the Northborough and Southborough Public Schools. As Greg mentioned, the purpose of the music group was to evaluate and celebrate the pre-K through 12 music programs that we have in our schools, highlight the strengths of our programs, identify opportunities for growth, and make recommendations for the next 3 to 5 years, including budgetary implications. The music study group was comprised by 22 members, and you can see the list of members here. And I truly appreciate the many hours that were devoted by all members to ensure that we could achieve our goals successfully and come to you with this presentation tonight. The committee studied the importance of music to maximize cognitive development in neuroscience that demonstrates the importance of music in the developing brain for lifelong advantages. Dr. Kathleen Howland presented to the group a synthesis of the vast research available, and we definitely all learned a lot. These benefits include improved speech perception and language development, enhanced cognitive development, and notably increased development of executive functions. Music can be seen, as it says here, as necessary and essential to proper brain development, with the benefits being lifelong. Consequently, though it's essential for all students, music education is critical for our youngest students as well. The National Institute of Health has just funded a surge in research in their Sound Health initiative due to the factors mentioned recently. We conducted a program study of all the music offerings from preschool through grade 12 across our 10 schools. And in all honesty, there are a lot of offerings in all of our schools. Among the many program strengths, we want to highlight the following: the wide variety of ensembles and performance opportunities, the high percentage of student involvement in all our elementary and middle school programs with ability to children of all needs, the large quantity of inventory, instrumental inventory that there is in Northborough, which allows any student who wants to play an instrument the ability to do it, the possibility to do it. And as well as the great support that the Northborough-Southborough Music Association provides in music scholarships and music lesson awards. We also conducted a survey, and it was distributed to middle school and high school students, parents, alumni to gather data about their experiences with the music offerings in our 10 schools. There were 2,037 respondents. Students, parents, and alumni responded very positively about their experiences in participating in our music programs in each of our districts. There were 3 themes that emerged, and those include the great social-emotional benefits, the variety of program opportunities offered district-wide, which matched our analysis, and again, the support of the Northborough and Southborough Music Association. We analyzed the responses about how students experience our music programs, and we found many highlights and benefits of their participation in our music programs. For example, stress management reduction, an increase in confidence, a sense of belonging to a social group, a sense of community, a sense of importance within that community, personal and music growth, and a sense of trust that is built with the music educators who work with the students for several years across the different grade spans, as well as the high quality of instruction that the students receive and the wide variety of ensembles and performance opportunities. These are some quotes from our surveys. There were many quotes and it was a pleasure to read all of them. I'll just highlight a few. They're all very important. Music has helped me in my life. Music literally saved my child. Band was my home. The music programs played such a huge role in my and my brother's lives. I learned so much from my teachers and I got to participate in some really amazing things. I made a lot of friends and it was a safe place for me in middle school. And this was from an alum. We had good response from our alumni. You will see a number of photos throughout the presentation that show just a small sample of the experiences in which our students have participated. From the survey, possible areas of growth, which we were able to identify. What came through were the possibility of feasibility studies for regularly scheduled weekly music classes for all pre-K students, and to add a feasibility study to be able to add elementary and middle school string program for Northborough students. Something else that came through was to research possible different ways of scheduling so that students don't have conflict with music classes at Algonquin and other schools when needing to schedule also academic classes. The possibility of also including a fine arts graduation requirement at the high school level in accordance to Mass Core compliance. And for Northborough to include a music educator for the purpose of exploring and the addition of an auditorium for school and community use in their building study committee. Here are some more photos. As a study group, we also identified no cost recommendations and the suggestion of increasing visibility in many different areas. One of the areas is on our district and school web pages, as well as one called emails. Increase highlights in community advocate and other local media. Increase the social media presence to make connections with our broader community. Propose a book read on the benefits of music for our community. And also look at other districts, see how they handle the scheduling and the possible conflict with curricular and extracurricular ensembles. The recommendations with budgetary implications. Again, the study group is looking at the possibility of being able to recommend to you feasibility studies in the two areas that I have already mentioned. Recommendations, we are very pleased to tonight to be able to say that the addition of a second band position at Melican Middle School has already been achieved, and that position is already in place for the beginning of this school year. We mentioned the fine art graduation requirement. New here is the informal opportunities so that students can gather just to enjoy music and play together before, during, and after school. And also professional development, both for educators and the community around the body of research connecting music and neuroscience. So as we conclude this presentation and starting to synthesize it, we would recommend that our schools share the neuroscience with all educators, that we can increase the visibility of our music programs in both community publications and social media, and definitely celebrate our success in our 10 schools of the music that is offered for our students in preschool through age 22. These are, again, synthesizing the recommendations that I have previously mentioned. And we definitely want to publicly applaud the music programs as a town asset. And as we come to the end of this presentation, we would like to, on behalf of our students, alumni, and parents, just thank you. Thank you to our communities for honoring and continuing the legacy of Northborough and Southborough musical legacy. I would also like to thank Deb Scarnini for developing this wonderful presentation that we have brought to you tonight. This concludes our presentation of the Music Study Group.
All right, thank you very much for that. That was wonderful. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I do.
Kathleen? Uh-huh.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really a privilege to be on this, to really be able to bring what I take to Boston every day in my teaching back into the community that I've chosen and that I love. One of the things that I had understood that we would be recommending would be a leadership position from pre-K to 22 in terms of somebody that oversees the entire music program, Rhoda. And I know I wrote an email to you earlier today, but unfortunately I was out of the house. And the second point I would like to make is that Paul Butka made this comment one evening that the monies that are raised by the Music Association pale in comparison to other organizations. And I would like to see an increase in that community support for the arts. So it's my understanding that the Northborough Southborough Music Association raises about $6,000 a year. I would like very much to see that increased for the provision of private lessons and those kinds of things. So I'm asking as a school board member for the community to really consider this asset and funding it with more support outside of the school budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments?
Through the chair, I'll speak. Sure.
Please.
I just want to commend everyone involved in this project. My kids are not musical, but they participated in many music programs and it's brought tears to my eyes. It's fabulous. And I will say I agree with a lot of the recommendations moving forward, especially, of course, the no-cost ones. But one of them in particular is the public awareness. And anyone who goes to these concerts and performances are blown away by the talent of our kids and our faculty who bring these talents to our children. But I just feel like they're not shared enough with the public. And a huge way we can, support, especially through monetary and fundraising and all that, is for our community to see. And so, especially the point about the community advocate, I also feel that we're just not representing our schools. There's plenty of other schools that always get press, but we need to be more of that. And I just think this is fabulous, and thanks for who all involved.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Ken? Yeah.
I was wondering if you could say more about it was one of the recommendations about the fine arts inclusion requirement, exactly what that would be, and if it's part of the core, why is that not being done? And then just explaining a little bit about why that's a cost option. Is it because of the hiring potentially of additional staff to fulfill that requirement? And great presentation, by the way, too, but I guess that was just my main question.
So my understanding about that is that Algonquin is already looking into that. And the conversations had already started last year when this was brought up. So it's put forward, but it is a conversation that is happening within the educators and administrators at Algonquin at this time.
And Rhoda, Amy Collins is in the audience. If you want me to promote her, I think she can speak more.
Oh, that would be great. Yes.
And Amy Collins, for those of you who do not know, is the Department Chair of Fine and Performing Arts at Algonquin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So yes, last year, like Rhoda said, we had started a committee to look into the feasibility of becoming MassCore compliant, or I should say maybe MassCore aligned, which MassCore alignment for fine arts is to have students to have 1 year of art, drama, or music in their transcript to graduate from high school. So right now, the high school graduation requirement at Algonquin is for students to take a half year of either art, drama, or music, or a course from the applied arts department, which is your economics, video, business courses. So we just started, we met a couple of times last year, and then of course, we didn't get to finish our work when we closed schools, but that's something I'm hoping we ramp up again. And look, we had many teachers interested in looking at this so that students could experience the arts and be pushed to experience all that we have to offer at Algonquin.
So Amy, could I just add to that, I think that I think it is a minimum requirement in terms of the MassCore, and many of our students exceed that requirement by a significant amount of courses. And I think the goal is to make sure that no student leaves Algonquin without at least having 1 year of fine and performing arts experiences on their in their experience at Algonquin High School.
Correct. We did look at some data for previous years of graduations of seniors, and yes, many students take multiple courses in art, music, and drama, but we did also find that some did not find room in their schedule to experience the courses before they left Algonquin.
Katura, can I share a comment?
Yes. Yep. Kamali.
Rhoda, thank you for the presentation and the team. I just want to offer a comment, and I was like, maybe it's not relevant, but I'll share it because it kind of gives you another lens as to how the music program can impact children as well. I have my children are still at the elementary level, and the music program has been, I've written personal notes to teachers to just thank them for their music class being an opportunity where my kids were able to have exposure to music that they hear at home, artists that they like that represent their culture. And they did that, one, because they were great musicians. Specifically, I remember sending a note home after my daughter came home, singing and looking for more YouTube videos about Nina Simone. And I thought that was awesome because we've heard a lot about Bach, but I wanted her to come into the 21st century as well. And over the quarantine period, where everyone was doing lots of unique things to help teach the children or meet them where they were. One, my daughter plays the cello, and she loves a particular song that happens to be reggae. And the teacher was able to put music, what is it called? Put the actual cello symbols that she needed to know to a song. So she was able to play that and share it with her friends. And so I just wanted to offer, I guess, a case study or some color to how well or how you know, the teachers are doing such a unique job at kind of meeting the kids where they are and using that version of art to be inclusive. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for that. And I've been reminded about the hand raising feature in the participant list. So I'm so sorry, I forgot to look there. So I'm gonna go to the names on the list for further comments. And I don't know how recent all of these are, but I'll just go down them and you can say if you actually have a comment. So Roger, you're at the top of the list if you have something, if you have a comment.
I do, and actually I felt bad earlier tonight. I wasn't using my hand, and after I spoke, I saw Kamali had her hand up. So, you know, now we're even, Kamali. I just like to acknowledge Rhoda's leadership throughout this process. I think back to that from the first organizational meeting, kind of laying out what you know what the committee was going to try to do to get through to the presentation tonight. A lot of people contributed. There is no doubt about that. But you know, Rhoda really kept it going, and I'm sure that there were a lot of extra hours involved, you know, in working on this effort. So thank you very much, Rhoda.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to everyone. And I did not mention Lee also helped put this presentation tonight together. So I'm grateful for everybody's really committed study group.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Paul Desmond.
Yes, thank you. Rhoda, I'll second or third this great presentation and appreciate all the hard work that went into this. And I was particularly glad to see I think it was one of the no-cost recommendations was looking for ways to get kids to participate in music, you know, outside of formal things. And that's one thing that I think is unfortunate right now at the high school is like my daughter was in chorus for the first 2 years, I think. And then after that, you know, you have to pick between choosing a music elective and from the dozens of other electives that are available. And it's, you know, it's just unfortunate that you have to make that choice, that there isn't some sort of other chorus and probably other bands and so forth that you can participate in, even if you're not taking it as an elective. And I don't know, it's just a suggestion. And like I know in the middle schools, and I'm pretty sure you can go before school or after school and still participate even if you're not taking it. And so I just think that would be a good option at the high school.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Joan.
Thank you, Couture. I would just like to thank again Rhoda and Kathleen Howland and Amy, who's here tonight, for the wonderful presentation that you made tonight on the music study group. My question is, as we go forward, is this because you made this presentation, is the work done, or is this group still going to be staying together and helping to assist us as we go into the budget season? Because I look here that, you know, possible ways of growth, one of the ones you mentioned was alleviate student conflicts at ARHS. So I was wondering if, as we go forward in the months ahead, if we have, I'm sure we can come to you, Rhoda, or through Kathleen, but is this group going to stay together, or is the work now done?
So I'll just comment on that, Joan. So many of the recommendations, there's additional work to be done. We have an outstanding team of music educators who are taking on some of that work and looking at coherence across our 3 districts, and also looking at, you know, scheduling, looking at how we can increase participation in music programs, how we can reduce some of the scheduling conflicts, as Paul Desmond mentioned. And also to Kathleen Howland's earlier point, although not a recommendation, but looking at leadership capacity in our district. And one of our strategic goals is really looking at educator learning and leadership, and really reviewing and assessing the current leadership roles and responsibilities related to curriculum and instruction. And part of that evaluation will be looking at the leadership in fine and performing arts and seeing if there are areas of growth in that particular area. So the work continues. The work of the committee, the study group, has completed, although we will be accessing Kathleen Howland's expertise as well as the expertise that we have in-house with our music educators.
Okay, and then Katura, I have a follow-up.
Yes, please.
I'd just like to mention that I think all of us have gone to some community events and even into churches, and it's always a pleasant surprise is to have a group of Algonquin or even the middle school musicians there offering background music to different events. So you never know where they're going to show up, and I think it's great that the kids are volunteering their time to do it as a jazz ensemble or anything, brass ensemble at churches, and it's really wonderful what they do. So I hope that Amy and Greg, you take this back and thank middle school and the high school for enlightening and sharing with the community. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Jessica.
Thanks. I was going to say something similar to what Paul said. Just as in my experience as a parent, I have a freshman and a sixth grader, and once you get to the high school, you really have to choose. And my daughter gave up the flute because of soccer, and that makes me a little sad. But that's what she had to do. She also had to give up dance too, because athletics are so demanding. So to have if you want to be an athlete, it seems to be hard to be able to do anything else. And I hope we can find a way to change that, so you don't have to give up your music in order to play sports. And then the other thing I just want to say is I just want to commend the music teachers, the band teachers. I mean, my daughter in middle school just really loved to play. She liked the flute, but she loved the experience of playing music with her in the band with her friends, and all the kind of extracurricular, like going to play at the Paw Sox and fun things like that. Those are going to be things she remembers forever. And the band teachers are just so excellent. And my younger daughter is going to get to experience trottier band, and she's just so excited. So hopefully, I have great faith that our amazing music educators will figure out ways to be able to play the clarinet during COVID. But she's just very excited about it. So thank you for inspiring our kids so much.
Okay, thank you. Sean O'Shea.
I just want to go back and get clarification about the mass core alignment. I understand, many students are taken above the requirement, but are we, like there's X amount of credits that are needed for math or X amount of years for phys ed? Are we out of compliance, or is it more a voluntary requirement? Is it more a suggestion of this fine arts requirement for a year? And I just want to know if we're out of compliance. We're going to need to really look at that in our budget line this year.
I'll comment on that. So the high school has looked at the Mass Core requirements and where we need to make some adjustments in alignment. We are currently not aligned with the Mass Core, and that is work that has been done at the committee level at the high school. My recommendation is for that to be a presentation at an upcoming agenda for the regional school committee meeting. However, I will say, although we're not aligned, our students typically exceed the expectations of Mass Core, as it's more of a floor, not the ceiling of expectation.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure we're providing the resources that we need or are supposed to. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then
Paul,
as a school committee, not as a school. Yes.
Okay, Paul Betka, you're next.
Thank you. Rhoda, I thought it was a terrific presentation. I love the pictures. I think they really were kind of powerful image on just how far the music program reaches across so many kids. It was, I thought that was terrific. My question was going to be very similar to Sean's. I think I'm still going to ask a little bit more of a follow-up on it. So you know, I mean, are we, is this something that we are required by some law somewhere to comply with? And, you know, are we currently out of compliance with that? That would be a first from, to my knowledge, that of anything like that that I've heard of. And I guess my follow-up would be, we out of compliance anywhere else? You know, since the topic is on the table.
So we have done the study, Paul, and we can bring the data back to the committee. I don't have the data in front of me to speak to. One of the things we've done as a high school is we've analyzed what types of courses students take throughout their experience, and they are meeting the Mass Core requirements, although they're not required. So the opportunity exists, but there's still an opportunity for a student not to, for example, to elect, as Amy mentioned, to take a music class or find a performing arts class. The majority of our students exceed the Mass Core requirements. We just haven't made it mandatory in our program of studies, which is the work that the committee did last year to really examine that and look at that and identify where we need to make that a requirement, such as fine performing arts.
So just as a follow-up, if I could, Greg, so we haven't made it a requirement, but the state of Massachusetts has? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the Mass Core is a partnership with state colleges and universities around, you know, in order to be accepted into those colleges, there's minimum requirements called the Mass Core in terms of credits that they need to take. And again, we have all of those opportunities for students. But again, I'll give an example, world language. So world language at the high school is 1 year. Mass Core has multiple years of language. Many of our students take multiple years of language, but again, it's not a requirement for graduation at the high school. And that's the work of the committee, the subcommittee that looked at, okay, where do we need to align? And that is work that is being moved forward this year.
Thank you.
Paul, are you all set?
Yeah, kind of. I suspect we'll talk about this more later, but yes.
And I think that we do have the analysis in the report, Paul, and I'd be happy to provide it to the committee.
I mean, what I thought I just heard you say, Greg, was that some kids graduate from Algonquin Regional High School and are not in compliance with requirements that are necessary to get into state colleges and universities. Is that what that's not what you just said, is it?
Not all of it. That is accurate, Paul. Not all of our kids. It's a minority of students meet those requirements, but not all of our students are also set that as a goal.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Lauren?
Thank you, Katora. I just wanted to say thank you to Rhoda and all the music educators and committee members who helped put this together. I just wanted to sort of say from, you know, my perspective, I, throughout the past, I don't know, maybe almost 10 years, watched my brother-in-law play in all of the bands throughout middle school and high school at Northborough Public Schools. And so he graduated from Algonquin a few years ago. And I just remember going to one of his first concerts when I had first met him, and he was in middle school, and I was blown away. And I just remember being like, wow. And I came from a really great school district that has a great music program, but I really was blown away. And then as he progressed into Algonquin, just like every concert was like better and better. And so that just really speaks to our music educators. And I just want to commend all of our music educators today who are here today and then who are not on this call. I actually wanted to be a music teacher back in the day. I'm not anymore. But so, I mean, the amount of inspiration you give the kids was so evident in that presentation with all of those quotations. So you saw that alumni and parents are just so thankful that our music programs exist. They value music education. You heard that Jess said, you know, unfortunately, there are sort of like kids are being pulled in many different directions. So I guess just sort of what I'm trying to say is that our programs are amazing, but, you know, at the sort of expense of our music educators who really are stretched thin. So, Greg, I heard you talking about how we do need to look at our leadership possibilities. And if one of our recommendations to expand our programs to include strings, I'm a cellist, so I highly support that. If that comes to fruition, we'll definitely need to take a look at that because, again, our music educators really are stretched thin with all the programming they're doing before and after school, which is phenomenal. I think that that's just really important to put our value in our music educators as well. And then also, I just wanted to comment on what Kamali was talking about, sort of adding, different layers of music education, including culturally diverse music in our education is really wonderful. So thank you to everyone for all your hard work, and I'm really looking forward to what our next steps will be.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Paul Butka, it looks like did you have your hand up again, or is that from before?
My mistake. I'm done.
Okay. Jennifer.
I just had a quick follow-up, not to belabor this point, but I'm just trying to understand, so if there's a student who graduates without completing the required music or fine arts requirement and they apply to a school, like a state school, does that mean that they're not going to get in because they haven't fulfilled this, or what's the implication for that student? And then the additional comment, I guess, then is are the schools doing something to either make sure students and parents are aware of this, that if they don't complete this, they could be not in alignment with a school that they might want to go to? So, and I was confused, so if you can clarify that.
Greg, you're muted.
So the Mass Core framework looks at Massachusetts High School Program of Studies and basically sets requirements. So for example, English language arts, there's 4 units, math is 4 units, science is 3 labs plus three science plus a lab-based course. Arts is 1 unit and foreign language is 2 units. In most of the areas we are aligned with the Mass Core, and the guidance department does a lot of work planning the course sequence with our students as freshmen, so they know what trajectory and what courses they need to take. The goal really is to make our program of studies, make it not optional for our students, that again, these are expectations. And again, part of the analysis that was done is looking at how many students, even though the program of studies does not say that they need 2 units of foreign language, how many students have met or exceeded that expectation? And it is over 90, it's 90+% of our students. We just want to make sure that it is a requirement and that students can escape those minimum expectations. And I think that it warrants a presentation, with data, because we have done the analysis and we have done the work, and we can show you where we're aligned, where there's more requirements than the Mass Core, and where we need to look at adding additional program requirements for our students.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I see Kathy Key.
Sorry, Rhoda, that was an excellent presentation. Thank you so much for all the hard work for the past year that you guys have been working on this. Greg, I have one question for you. When you talk about the graduation requirements, is fine arts, is drama included in that too? Are there different things besides music that are included in that, correct?
Fine and performing arts.
Okay. I was gonna say, so like all 3 of my kids took drama or some sort of theater. So that does count towards graduating, and the guidance department actually does go over that with them when they're in 9th grade, which is also a great department as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Rhoda, thank you again for that excellent presentation and for this good discussion. We really appreciate it. I'm just trying to be aware of the time. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, professional development summary update.
Katura, before we move on, could I
Yes.
just
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
acknowledge some of our music educators who
Please.
joined us this evening. So we have David Dackwell. So thank you, David, for your hard work. We have, hang on, I'm looking through my grid so I don't miss anyone. Rebecca McCara. So thank you, Rebecca. Katrina Whalen. Thank you, Katrina. Deb Scarnini. So thank you, Deb, for your efforts. And Amy Collins and Kathleen Howland served on the committee. And I believe, am I missing someone? Rhoda. And Rhoda. Thank you, Rhoda. All right, sorry about that.
Okay, no, that's great. That's great. Thank you to everybody. That's wonderful. Okay, so professional development.
Yes, so this past Monday, September 14th, we concluded our 2 weeks of professional development. I just want to applaud Dr. Reinhorn and the committee and educators for a job well done. And it was a lofty task, but it was the time was well spent. And this evening, Dr. Reinhorn will give the committee an update on the 2 weeks of professional development.
Thank you, Greg. Do you want me to share my screen or?
Sure.
It's okay. All right. All right. I've got screen. Let me hold on one second. Sorry. I can do this a better way. It's the problem with too many monitors. Is that visible to everyone? Okay. So first, before I start, I want to just take a moment to thank so many people who are involved in making these 2+ weeks of professional development a success. The PD committee, which includes members of our association, teachers, principals, educational support professionals, representatives from all different groups. That group is instrumental in planning any of our professional development. And then the principals of all the schools, the PD, the directors, and teachers from across the system. So we had just so much energy and expertise that was shared by teachers, both as participants and as presenters. And really want to give a special shout out to the instructional technology team, ranging from Julie Doyle, but their entire team. This is a time that's very technology intensive. So there was a huge appetite for professional development around technology and for support in developing skills in those areas. So that was a big part of the work. So I'm just going to give you a summary of some of the of what we focused on and how we planned the week, and then the 2 weeks, and some elements of feedback that we received from teachers. So as we went into preparing and organizing the week, we had really 4 guiding themes that were helping or guiding us, or they're guiding themes, they were guiding us. So the first was that there were a set of shared learning experiences that we wanted to make sure everyone had. And I'll tell you more about what those were. The second was the concept of collaboration, making sure that teachers had sufficient time to work together and collaborate. The third was differentiation. And the final was metacognition and reflection. So in terms of shared learning experiences, there were a number of topics that we wanted to make sure we could build a foundation and have everyone have some shared experiences. So that included health and safety protocols, operations and procedures, really making sure right off the bat that we were all on the same page about all of these new protocols and ways of working together and ways of being together. We wanted to make sure that people had shared experiences as schools, so time when they came together as a school, that there were sessions focused on social emotional learning, both for focusing on the wellness of teachers and on the wellness of our students. And Dr. Carrie Wilkins was a key speaker in this area. She is a child psychologist who consults to the district regularly, but also came and worked with our educators during this period of time. Culturally responsive pedagogy, which is on the slide that you're looking at right now, but was omitted if you're looking at your packet. I apologize that that wasn't on the original slide, but we had shared experiences across for all schools related to continuing our work on culturally responsive pedagogy. Technology was obviously a huge element of the foundation that we were trying to build. And Greg Kulewick was an outside speaker who came and worked with the district in this area. And he is an ed tech consultant. And finally, we had sort of the basic technology that we wanted to make sure we were all on the same page about our skills around Google Classroom, Canvas, Zoom, all of the different Google tools, and PowerSchool, so that we could go into the year saying that we were sort of ready to go in terms of those skills and knowledge. In terms of collaboration, we wanted to make sure that people had opportunities to collaborate within and across schools, within and across disciplines, roles, and districts. And I'll show you the schedule and you'll be able to see that there was ample time for all sorts of collaboration. And this was something that was really well used and much appreciated throughout the system. The third theme was about differentiation. As much as we knew that it was important to build a shared foundation and to have these baseline experiences that we could count on for everyone, we also knew that just like our students, our educators have different needs, different interests, and are at different levels. And so we wanted to make sure that during this professional development period, they would be able to find sessions that were differentiated based on topics, differentiated based on levels. So for example, if someone was new to Zoom, we wanted them to be able to find the session that taught them sort of the beginner's Zoom. But for someone who was not new to Zoom, we did not want them to have to sit through Zoom 101. We wanted them to be able to step in at the level they were at. So having Zoom 101 and Zoom 201, or Canvas 101 and Canvas 201. Similarly, we wanted to be able to differentiate by having another way that we were able to differentiate was by having options for self-directed learning. So we had a whole set of options that were asynchronous options, and people were able to create their own options to pursue their own interests, their own areas of expertise, and their own areas of need where they were wanting to learn more. In terms of metacognition, what we were really focusing on here was the idea that teachers need time to reflect. And so I have John Dewey's quote here that we don't learn from the experience, we will learn from reflecting on the experience. And so we wanted, with the collaboration time, to also have individual planning time when people could step back and have that time on their own. And finally, to have some prompts that would inspire people to stop and think, to set goals, to be able to reflect on the work they were doing and take stock. And so on a daily basis, teachers filled out a survey, and it was different every day. There were different questions and different prompts, but it gave them an opportunity to not only track what they were working on and what they were doing for their own records, but also to to think both look backwards and look forwards and set goals for future work, and also to give us feedback on what they're needing, what was working for them, and what they would hope for. So those are sort of big picture, some of the themes that were guiding this work. And I want to just give you a chance to see the schedule, because I think that will give you a little more insight. So this is a view of the overview schedule. This is the first week. And I wonder, it might be helpful. I think I'll switch over to showing it to you on a different tab. You can see a little better. So part of what you can see in looking at the schedule is that we started off, as I said, with really the basics of let's get everyone thinking about health and safety protocols, getting a chance to be together as schools, look at the operations, the procedures, and the protocols. And the first 2 days were really all about teachers' wellness, taking care of themselves, health and safety, and operations and protocols, and how is this year going to work? You know, we're doing school in very different ways than we have before. And then as we moved past those first 2 days, you can see that we start to move into some of those shared experiences, such as Google Classroom 101, making sure that all of our pre-K through 5 educators were working with Google Classroom at the 101 level or the 201 level. At the same time, our secondary schools were working on culturally responsive pedagogy. You can see that there's school-based sessions across the days. And then in the afternoon, there's collaborative planning. And again, with that differentiation, you might see here or there where there's a session for ESPs to be working on Google Classroom or on Canvas, or where a department might be coming together to have a meeting. By the end of we had the Power School training, and by the end of the week is when we had Greg Kulewick, who was our ed tech keynote speaker. Was very well received, as was Carrie Wilkins, who supported us with the social emotional learning. They were our sort of 2 big outside speakers that were very well received. And I'll just give you a glimpse of the second week. What you'll notice in the second week is that at this point, we really fell into a pattern of the mornings being more sort of sessions that were either like on Tuesday, because it was Labor Day week. These were opportunities for K through 12 collaboration. This is where your K through 12 music department could come together, or your K through 12, pre-K through 12 art department could come together. And then choice workshops, which were offered by our teachers for each other. And the afternoons are where we had the collaborative planning. And every afternoon was about different groups of teachers and educators, and sometimes role alike, sometimes cross roles, sometimes within schools, sometimes across schools, applying what they were learning, preparing for the coming school year, and doing all of that planning work. Whoops. So just to give you one more view to get a sense of the experience of what was going on that week, when we got it, or those 2 weeks, when we got into the work, there was a daily agenda that was probably the most visited Google Doc during those 2 weeks. And this was, whoops, sorry, I forgot I can't scroll on there. So I'll go to a different version of it. This was where teachers could go, and it was important on a pragmatic level because it's where the Zoom links were. So it's where they would go not only to know what was happening at what time, but it was often their, sort of entry ticket to say, oh, here's the Zoom link to get into this session. But it also is where we placed all of the recordings and slide decks from presentations that had already happened. So I'll just show you if we scroll down to where all of the Google Classroom sessions happen. What used to be Zoom links are now recordings and slides that teachers can go back to and reference and use as they go forward into the year. And if we go to some of the choice blocks, This is an example of a choice block. There are now recordings of the workshops and slide decks and other resources, so that again, if you weren't able to attend it, you can still go back and listen. And I'll tell you that sometimes if I didn't get the recordings up fast enough, there were emails in my inbox asking when they were coming. So this is a resource that we're going to cultivate and figure out how to continue to make accessible to everyone. And finally, I'll just show you there was a whole set of asynchronous options, which are all at the bottom here, which were webinars and resources and other types of, professional learning that they could do in these self-directed blocks. We did have the feedback every day, and just, whoops, sorry to make everyone dizzy. Just a few pieces when asked what were highlights from the professional development. A few of the themes in here were that people really valued the opportunity to collaborate with their colleagues, the opportunity to explore the technology and then have the time to apply it. There was a lot of positive feedback about Carrie Wilkins, Greg Kulewick, the culturally responsive pedagogy, some of these bigger sessions that were run. Highlights were having choices, having the time to prepare for what this person says, this most unusual year. So having the time and the much needed collaboration and training, expanding their skills and feeling more comfortable running Zoom meetings, having started to create my own Google slide presentations and learning how to use Screencastify. So just some examples of, I think, the skills and knowledge that people gained, the time they gained in collaborating with each other and feeling more prepared for what lays ahead, or what lies ahead. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. I'll just start off with a quick comment that I really appreciate this sort of behind the scenes look at what was happening, and I appreciate the positive outlook, the reimagining aspect, and it really seems like it hit all of the bases of what's needed at this period of time, and I'm glad that it seems like it was successful. I know we've only had one day of school, but I have to say everybody seems very prepared and organized, and they have a plan, and it's really great. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And so now I'll go down the hands that are up. So Erin, you're up first.
So thank you, Stephanie, for all your hard work organizing and planning this. I know it was a huge undertaking, not only the amount of time, kind of filling those 2 weeks, but also across 10 schools. Similar to what Katura said, I spoke with many of the teachers and staff throughout the couple of weeks, and so many of them were so appreciative of the time that they had to spend collaborating, the topics they were offered, and also the ability to personalize, which you touched upon. And not putting them, like you said, into Zoom 101 if they were already proficient in Zoom. And again, Katura mentioned as well, I have a kindergartner and a 4th grader who started today, and it seems like even just one day in, these PD days really paid off. I think they both had great experiences. Their days and the next few days are thoughtfully planned out. They're well organized. The communication from the principal and the teachers has been excellent. I spoke with many parents today throughout the day. And aside from a few technical glitches, I think everybody had really positive experiences. So I think we can hopefully say that these 2 weeks were not lost and that they were definitely helpful for our teachers. So again, thank you to you and all the presenters that helped our teachers get ready. Thank you to the teachers and staff for engaging in these professional development days and their commitment to making this all work out. Thanks again, Steph.
Thank you, Erin. And I will say that, as you said, Erin, there's going to be those glitches. And one of the things we keep trying to say to everyone is it's not all going to be perfect. And that was a big message that Carrie Wilkins really tried to hit home with everyone was we're not going to get it all perfect. It's all new, but we're going to learn from our mistakes and we're going to keep on moving. And so thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Oh, great. Thank you, Couture. I really just wanted to say to Stephanie and the entire professional development committee that I am greatly impressed with the ability of the committee to come up with a great mix of planned activities, planned sessions, and that time that they need to collaborate and provide that individual instruction. It was clearly very well thought out. And what I really, really like to see, I mean, as a teacher myself I've actually returned to some in-person instruction. I think it's really great to see that there was professional development that really addressed the emotional needs, not necessarily just of the students, but of the teachers as well. Again, speaking from experience, I can tell you that it is a very emotionally difficult time for teachers and students. And that return to the classroom can be quite overwhelming. So really all I wanted to say was kudos to you and the professional development committee and the teachers that engaged in that professional development. Clearly it's going to be of great assistance in the coming weeks. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, Jennifer?
So I wanted to echo some of the things that have been said. I think that, it was really great to see the presentation. It was very well done and to get a sense of what was happening. So I'm hoping that, I'm wondering if it's possible to really kind of promote that or share that with parents as much as possible, because I know there are a lot of questions about what was being done during those professional days. And I think it would be really helpful for folks to see the amount of work and effort that went into it, because I think it's fantastic. The other, I guess, question I have is, will there be opportunities for teachers who are interested in, I guess, continuing any, the problem solving or some of the education and support that was done around those professional days as the year goes on and as potential problems arise or that need to address these issues further later on? Will there be a chance for them to get that support?
Yes. So we have the half days in October. We have a full day in November, but we also, all of the schools have collaboration time built into their schedules. And a big theme has been that this can't be just up front. It needs to be ongoing work. So that's absolutely part of the plan.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Joan.
Thank you, Couture. Stephanie, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation that you made to us tonight, and also the 10 days of professional development. I mean, I know you have a wonderful committee, and this was put on, those extra 10 days that were given to you, where it was not at the beginning of June. It came kind of late, and so all of a sudden you had to put a very enriching and worthwhile 10-day professional development together. So kudos and bravo to all of you. I really like the idea of how you took the agendas and how you've put the links to it, so that if staff members want to go back, they can view the presentations, or if somebody wasn't there at that time because they were at another meeting, they can go back and view it. My question to you is, because you have those links, what if teachers come up with a really rewarding and enriching activities or lessons based on the presentations that they have? Is there any way of teachers to upload those lessons to share with other people, with other colleagues, and to almost create a library of resources as you do the remote learning and the hybrid? But thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, Joan. Yes, that is something that the curriculum leaders, who are teacher leaders, pre-K through 12, and I have been talking about, is trying to figure out some efficient ways to share resources. So we're working on that. It can become very chaotic and overwhelming quickly. So it's an ongoing process to figure out the best way to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Kathleen Howland.
Thank you so much. I'm a big professional development fan, as you know, when we got a chance to talk, Stephanie. And it really was a robust and wonderful schedule. And I agree with Chris that the emphasis on well-being for both teachers and students was spot on, absolutely spot on. I'm interested in, I heard about a lot of the tools that any teacher needs that, like Chris, I'm also a teacher and have been working on this for synchronous and asynchronous learning. And I heard more about the tools than sort of an overarching pedagogy of how to use and learn online versus just having like what we're doing now. We have the Zoom on us and we as adults are just talking, and we as adults are listening, listening, listening. And of course, that's vastly different for our children at various ages. So I'm looking to see what programs we're really looking at the pedagogy that allows these tools to sparkle in real meaningful learning. Thank you.
Sure. So that was built in and is ongoing work, but like Greg Kulewick, for example, as he was teaching skills and technology tools, he was also looking at the pedagogy and how to make students active participants in their learning. Similarly, there were other workshops that I attended where not only was this part of what they were doing as they were teaching people how to build community, they were also teaching them how to make students play active roles. So there was a lot of modeling of that sort of thing so that it wasn't about just talking at people. And that will be part of our ongoing work with the continuing professional development. It was also a focus for school-based sessions that school leaders were leading those conversations about thinking about the pedagogy.
That's great, because I really would like the community to distinguish that kind of an effort from the rescue pedagogy that we were all thrown into from the middle of March forward. That was something that nobody was prepared to teach, and now you're doing that. So I really commend you, because it is a completely different teaching style than any of us were taught in college. And yet there's a lot of great research out there that can support you, and you access great resources. So well done, my dear.
Okay, thank you. Jessica?
Hi, thanks. I'll echo everybody. It was highly impressive. And I want to echo Jen in saying that I was also going to say the same thing. It'd be great to just do some kind of summary for our parents, because that's one of the top questions that I've been getting, like, what have they been doing all this time? So, not that parents think that, people weren't doing worthwhile things, but people are genuinely curious about what was going on. Could you talk a little bit more about the culturally responsive pedagogy, like what happened in that? Because obviously that's something that we're going to be focusing on a lot, looking at our curriculum, and it's,
sure.
Yeah, basically, could you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so actually, I would love if Rhoda would talk about this, because Rhoda, I think with every effort in this, the reason I started with thank yous is because different people and their teams of teachers led different parts of this. So Rhoda had took the lead on this and had an entire team of teachers involved. So Rhoda, would you mind giving us a quick summary of what that was about?
Sure. The theme of the cultural responsive pedagogy was, an overarching theme that you saw in social emotional was taking care of ourselves, taking care of then of our students. And there's so many different aspects to cultural responsive teaching, but we took the aspect of the difference between caring for a student versus caring about a student. When you truly care for a student, you deeply know a student's story, and you deeply uplift the student's identity and culture and background. And so that's the theme that we explored during those sessions, as well as modeling how to use Jamboard, which is one of the Google Suite features that we're able to use. It's an interactive board that we can use. So that's what we explored, from the cultural proficiency point of view. And we also provided data from a district of the racial and ethnic diversity of our students.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Next is Paul Desmond.
Hi, thank you. I'll be very brief, but I just remember back when we had to decide whether to approve these 10 extra PD days, I asked you, Stephanie, whether we had enough content to fill them all. And you made it clear that you thought we did. And from this presentation, it's clear that you were definitely right. So I just want to say great job coming up with, not only coming up with, but executing this plan. Well done.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, I think that seems to wrap up all of the comments. Thank you so much again. This was really very informative, and it's just very impressive and wonderful to see, and we appreciate the planning and also the participation by everybody in it. So thank you. So I think that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is a strategic plan update.
So I'll make my presentation brief. The school committee voted the district strategic plan in June, and it's 2 months out since that vote. And I just want to talk briefly about the importance of the work of Vision 2026 and anchoring everything that we do. You just heard about our great professional development offerings. And all of those offerings, through the work of the Professional Development Committee and Stephanie and the district leadership team, were really looked at through the lens of our strategic plan. What were the goals we're trying to accomplish? I also will say that the past 2 months, July and August, has been focused on reopening. We've put a tremendous amount of effort and time in reimagining what school might look like in September and thinking about our routines, and it's been very logistical. As a leadership team, though, we've also really looked at our strategic objectives, and we've given a lot of thought about what do we want to accomplish at the end of this year, even though we're in a pandemic currently. So again, the strategic objectives: empowering learners, equity of opportunity, healthy and balanced learners, educator learning and leadership, finance and operations to support teaching and learning has been the center of our work. The leadership team and I are spending a lot of time unpacking the strategic objectives and initiatives and really thinking about what are those implementation and action steps that we will be taking this year so that we're making progress toward the goal set in the plan. And again, later in the presentation around my goals, it'll be evident that, again, we're trying to create through lines with the goals outlined in the strategic plan, from the goals that educators set to the goals that are set in strategic school improvement plans, to the goals our district leadership team sets, and the goals that I set for myself as a superintendent. And again, we're looking this through line and all of us working together on the behalf of the strategic plan and our students. So more information to come, but I just want to keep bringing the strategic plan to the forefront whenever I can in terms of the work that we do. And every presentation that we make moving forward will connect back to that strategic plan. For example, you heard about the health and well-being of our students. The thinking around that was, okay, what types of experiences do we want to provide our educators to help achieve that goal? And what type of activities and experiences do we want our students to have? So again, a very broad, overarching, brief conversation this evening, but again, it really grounds our work and helps us move forward in times where it's very easy to get stuck in the here and now and just think about just logistics and how do we get through this pandemic, but it's been a great document for us to move forward with.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any hands up or any comments on that. Okay, well, thank you. Then we'll move on to Coalition for Equity update.
So yes, so just a brief update. We had 77 community members, educators, parents, interested in serving on the Coalition for Equity. The Coalition for Equity will be led by Rhoda and me, and we've identified 24 members to serve on the committee. and we will on the coalition, and we will be scheduling our first meeting in early October. And we have a communication ready to go out on Friday, inviting the members to the coalition. We also want to capture the expertise and interest of the other members who were not selected to be on the coalition. So we're thinking about what experience and activities can we develop for the larger interested group. And they will be invited to participate in some exercises and experiences around the coalition work, in addition to the 24 members. So again, more information to share with the committees, but that is ready to launch, and we're very excited about the work and excited to use Rhoda's expertise in this area.
I have one follow-up question. So there are 24 members on the coalition total. Correct. Okay, and how many of those are members of the community of the 77 who?
So all 24 are members of the.
Oh, all 24. I see. Okay.
So we didn't think a committee of 7 or a coalition of 77 was a little bit weird. But we are going to do kind of an inner circle, outer circle, where there'll be opportunities for all members who shared that they were interested in helping move this work forward to participate in conversations and dialogue.
Okay, well, it's wonderful to have so much interest. That's really great. I see Jessica has her hand up.
Yeah, so is this the coalition? I don't know if I'm confusing things, but do we have school committee members on this coalition? So we're deciding on each of our school committees who that will be, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, thanks.
Okay. All
Did
right.
we already do that or not? I can't remember. No,
I believe
right?
each committee is in a little bit different place with assigning committee members
Okay.
To the subcommittee assignments, liaison assignments, but I think most committees have.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other comments. So thank you very much for that update. That brings us to the personnel report.
So just briefly, we have one person on the personnel report, and that is Rhoda Webb. And again, Rhoda did an amazing job as an interim assistant superintendent last year, but made a decision to go back to her role, working with our English learners and also taking on some of the work around equity. And she is, I told her that she only could go back if she doesn't, or she only could leave her interim assistant superintendent post if she returned to her position. She couldn't go anywhere else. And thankfully for our district, she agreed. So I just want to, again, thank Rhoda for her leadership last year. And it was a very difficult year, and she did an outstanding job. So thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Lucky for us. Thank you for doing that. Okay, then we move on to the draft 2021-22 student calendar.
So in your packet is, again, the draft calendar for next year. I know it seems like a long way off, but this is typically the time we start looking and thinking about what we want the calendar to look like. So basically what I did in partnership with Cheryl Lepre is put together a draft calendar based on some of the key calendaring events that typically happen and dates. And my goal is to get input and feedback from the committee members of ideas around the calendar. I also plan on posting the calendar to the website to get community input and feedback, so that as we move this work forward, we'll have input and feedback from the committees as well as the community.
Okay, so this is just a preview for discussion at another time. Is that right? Okay. Okay, great. So we have that. Then that brings us to the superintendent's goals.
I'm just going to share my screen. So I just want to, I'm pleased to share a draft, my draft goals for this upcoming year. I've spent a lot of time over the past several months thinking about what I want to accomplish as a superintendent over the next year. And although, it's been an extremely challenging July and August for us as a leadership team, I still think it's essential that we look forward and we look past the pandemic to think about what type of organization we want to grow into. And although I look at the pandemic as a short-term challenge, and there have been many great lessons that we're learning along the way. And then as Stephanie pointed out, it definitely will not be perfect, but it's something that we're trying to keep the students at the center of our work and our decisions. With the district launching the reauthorized strategic plan, Vision 2026, Educate, Inspire, and Challenge, I've identified 5 goals that are aligned with the plan's strategic objectives. And those are empowering learners, equity of opportunity, healthy and balanced learners, educational learning and leadership, and finance and operations to support teaching and learning. And I looked at the strategic initiatives within those objectives. I also
Greg, I'm sorry, can I just interject?
Sure.
Are you screen share? Are you
I'm
needing
going
to show
to,
us?
once I frame it, I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, fine. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
And then I've identified 4 standards: the instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. And then lastly, 8 indicators to focus my work for this academic year. So I will share my goals. Let me just make this a little bit larger so people can actually read them.
And we didn't receive this, right? I'm just making sure I didn't.
It was linked on the agenda.
What a separate? Okay.
So,
Oh,
so the first goal. But Kelly, you're not the first person to ask that question. So.
I miss it when it's a link and not an attachment. I always miss it. So
Kelly, I had to ask too. So
sorry. Thank you.
So the first goal is aligned with strategic objective, empowering learners, and it's really to work with the Northborough, Algonquin, Southborough administrative team to implement instructional practice that engage students in developing and demonstrating their knowledge and skills through rigorous, innovative, and relevant learning experiences. And I think it ties in nicely with Kathleen Howland's comment around, although we were doing a lot of skill building and technology, it's really more about the teaching and learning and pedagogy. What are we trying to accomplish with our students? What knowledge and skills do we want them to leave the learning with? And how will we know when they've learned it? And what are those research-based or evidence-based research practices to make sure that those are achieved? And as a district, we're looking at coherent practices across our 10 schools so that when we're designing curriculum, designing lessons, there's consistency in the process and protocols. So the strategic initiative that this aligns to is really, collaborating within and across schools to ensure consistent implementation of high quality instructional practices, so that, any student in a 4th grade classroom, regardless of the teacher, can expect that there'd be the same types of high quality instructional practices in place. In terms of the action steps, it's really doing some baseline assessment of where we are in terms of what types of professional collaboration exists in our schools, and what types of coherence in those professional collaborations take place within our schools, but across our schools and across our 3 districts. Developing systems for professional collaboration that are research-based, and are looking at really enhancing the structures and processes for high-performing collaborative teams. It's one thing for people to sit and meet together. It's another level of experience really for teachers to sit down and be a high-performing collaborative team in planning and developing curriculum. And then providing opportunities for peer-to-peer collaboration. The research around professional learning really states that the person who has the greatest impact on professional learning from one teacher is another teacher's colleague. So again, making sure that there's a lot of opportunity for peer-to-peer collaboration. Also, with this action step is really looking at the current systems for feedback for educators and administrators that support improvement and growth. This work is not new to our district. This is something we've embarked on last year, and really thinking about what types of feedback can we provide teachers so that actually it helps a teacher improve his or her practice and moves the teacher forward. And we've done some initial surveying of faculty and staff around what types of feedback is helpful for professional growth. Action step number 4 is really around developing systems for common use of digital learning platforms and tools for in-person and remote learning environments. This was something that we've been working on for a couple of years, but really came to light in the spring, where even though we had consistent platforms, for example, Canvas at the middle school and high school, it was used very differently depending on the educator. So really looking at how can we ensure continuity so that when students experience these digital learning platforms, there's some coherence as well as routines that they can rely on. And lastly, assessing the effectiveness of the hybrid and standalone remote learning programs and incorporating changes to reflect improvements to future remote learning opportunities. So this is more of a here and now goal in terms of getting feedback from students, educators, and families so that we can adjust and adapt and make sure that students' experiences are strong in these two environments, but also thinking about what do we want to endure past the pandemic. So what are we learning in the hybrid and standalone remote learning programs that we don't want to lose when we're able to go back to 100% in-person learning. And then I've listed some measures and evidence of achieving some of these action steps. So that was strategic objective, empowering learners. The next strategic objective is equity of opportunity, and really looking at providing all students access to challenging and culturally responsive learning experiences that meet their individual needs. So Stephanie and Rhoda spoke about launching that work with all of our educators across our 3 districts. And it's really tied to the strategic initiative of fostering culturally responsive, inclusive communities and environments that provide equal access. So that is also making sure we do our work as educators and employers and employees, and really raising awareness and understanding bias and so forth. So some of the action steps we've identified, or I've identified, is administer a baseline assessment of district and school-based faculty and staff understanding of culturally responsive pedagogy and unconscious biases. So really, where are we? Get a baseline assessment. Build capacity of system and school leaders to lead conversations about culturally responsive pedagogy and unconscious bias. Again, so we've started this work last year, and it's really giving our leadership team the tools and resources and skills to be able to bring that back to their faculty and staff, and for our faculty and staff then to bring it to our students. And then lastly, create and launch professional learning pathways for administrators, faculty, and staff that can build their understanding of culturally responsive pedagogy and unconscious bias. So people are along this journey in many different places and part of the continuum, and really acknowledging that some are just starting this journey, others are much further along, and that there are many entry points for our faculty, staff, and administrators to enter these conversations. And what the non-negotiable really is that we all need to do this work, we all need to be engaged in the work, but how we engage in it and how we enter in terms of the pathway may vary depending on where an educator, faculty, or staff member is. The next strategic objective is healthy and balanced learners, really prioritizing social, emotional, and physical well-being of our students. This has been at the forefront of our work as we reopen our schools, making sure that the well-being of our educators and our students is at the forefront of our work, and making sure that we're in tune to that. So the strategic initiative really is develop and implement a coherent and systematic approach to social and emotional learning, pre-K through 12. So there's no shortage of programs and resources that we have as a district, from first step to responsive classroom to second step. There's just a lot. And one of the goals is really to have a district social emotional learning committee identify and inventory all of the practices and approaches that are used, and again, build coherence. It does not make sense for students to experience one curriculum in first grade and then a very different curriculum in second grade and then another in third grade. That there's some scaffolding that these programs build from year to year. So really looking at more of a coherent approach and identifying what that looks like. So this work is really exploring the effective approaches, agreeing upon coherent approaches, and developing a plan for professional learning and implementation of social emotional learning. And then lastly, looking at collecting baseline data about our students' social and emotional health and physical well-being, and using that data to progress monitor. The Metro West Health survey data we have is 6 through grade 12. That has been historical longitudinal data that's helped us kind of evaluate how we're doing in terms of students and their social and emotional well-being. And we're looking at trying to incorporate similar types of data collection at the K through 5 level. So again, we can see where our students are, and then we can measure progress. Strategic objective number 4 is educator learning and leadership, demonstrate continual growth through professional collaboration. So as you heard throughout the music study group presentation, the professional development presentation, we believe every employee is a leader in our district, and that we believe in a distributed leadership model. And therefore, part of our work is really increasing district leaders, school leaders, and teachers' capacity to improve teaching and learning. And also developing and implementing aligned district and school improvement plans, including professional learning plans for educators. So in the spring, we did present kind of a new model for school improvement plans, and much of that work was aligning the plans to the larger strategic plan. So again, the action steps within this are to review and assess current leadership roles and responsibilities related to curriculum and instruction in order to define and, where needed, restructure the roles. So kind of doing an inventory and thinking about where we want to go. We did a lot of work around organizational leadership last spring with the committees, and really the next layer of the work that we talked about at that time was really thinking about what types of curriculum leadership do we need to move the work forward in our schools and in our districts. So the next is provide opportunities for district and school leaders to further develop skills related to observation, feedback, and coaching of educators. So again, how do you observe teaching and learning? How do you deconstruct? And then how do you provide feedback and coaching to educators to improve their practice? Another action step is to evaluate current professional learning systems and the effectiveness of the systems. The evaluation will focus on time, how it's used, roles and responsibilities, and how we use professional learning. Stephanie mentioned the 2 weeks of professional development, and also some of those half days in those district days. But in terms of our comprehensive professional development approach, it also includes faculty meetings, collaborative times. It's the courses that educators take for licensure, it's their PEPs. We look at professional development as a much broader and much larger framework, and really thinking about how we can make sure that that is happening, because that's such an essential part of moving our organization forward. And then lastly, implement a consistent school improvement process for all schools supported by a school improvement template. And we are launching that work this year with our schools. And then 4.2 is provide school leader support in organizing and planning the school improvement planning processes and ensure alignment among educators' goals, the school improvement goals, and the district strategic plan. So this is the work that we're doing as a leadership team to really think about, okay, what are the overarching goals? What are the school goals? And what are our educator goals, so that there's that through line moving us forward in accomplishing the work. The next strategic objective is finance and operations to support teaching and learning. So finances and operations are an essential part. If not done well, they can get in the way of the work that happens within our classrooms and teaching and learning. So really looking to develop and support and operate sustainable, attractive, and well-maintained schools. So part of this work is really thinking about the future. So it's tied to Strategic Initiative 5.2, which is really engaging the school community in an open dialogue about the quality of school facilities that will support the next generation of Northborough and Southborough students. So really looking long-term, looking at 5 to 7 years out, but the planning around those next generation schools and restructuring really starts now, because it really takes about that much time to bring it to fruition. And then goal 5.4 is adopting a new student information system, Power School. As Julie Doyle has presented on numerous occasions, this is a important part of one of the goals we're trying to achieve this year. And Julie and her technology team, among the many other tasks that they've been charged with as a result of the pandemic, is moving this work forward and improves the efficiency of our operation, the access to data, and the integration of data systems. So just some of the action steps is partnering with towns on the long-term capital and master planning, completing a needs assessment of each school facility, looking at the MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, funding opportunities, and then looking at developing and submitting statements of interest, and developing education plans for Peasley and Mary School in preparation for that long-term vision. And then goal 5.4 is tied to adopting a new information system, really completing the migration and implementation of a new student information system. And the student information system really touches every employee. Every employee has some type of role in using this system. Streamlining and simplifying student scheduling procedures, and the new student registration to increase efficiency. And then again, providing parents and guardians with a platform and training to complete school forms online. So again, building some of those efficiencies in terms of how we collect data, but also making it more user-friendly for families. So those are the 5 goals that I've identified for my work over the course of the next year. Would be happy for feedback. And then just in terms of the standards, I've identified instructional leadership. I've identified instructional indicator, which basically sets high expectations for the content and quality of instruction and empowers administrators to do the same. And again, it aligns to our strategic objectives. Evaluation, so this is another indicator, provides effective and timely supervision and evaluation of staff in alignment with state regulations and contract. And again, our belief as a system that feedback and evaluation is such an important part of the work that we do at all levels. In terms of standard 2, management and operations, it's human resources and management and development. Again, we are a people organization, and the most important work we really do is making sure we have a district-wide system for recruiting outstanding employees, hiring, and equally retaining an effective workforce. So making sure we keep our talented employees, and also making sure it's a diverse workforce of administrators and educators. Indicator 4 is fiscal systems. Again, the budget process is such an important process of thinking about what we want to accomplish and what resources we need, whether it's additional special education staff, whether it's additional teachers or materials. But this work is really leading the team to think about what goals we want to accomplish and what budget resources we need to accomplish those goals that are aligned with our vision, mission, and goals. Standard 3 is family and community engagement, really looking at how to promote the growth of all students through effective partnerships with families. I think this is even more important in the times that we're currently in, that partnerships with families has never been more essential, and really working out how we can make connections to families and really thinking about sharing responsibility. How do we empower our leadership team and teachers to collaborate with families to address each student's academic, social, and emotional behavioral needs? So again, I think this goal has never been more important in terms of the context that we're currently in. Standard 4 is professional culture. Again, how can we promote success for all students by nurturing and sustaining school culture of reflective practice, high expectations, and continuous learning for staff? That the work is never done, that you could be doing this for 100 years and there's always more to learn and work to do. So the indicator I chose is commitment to high standards, really thinking about establishing a district-wide commitment to high standards of teaching and learning and with high expectations for achievement for all. Looking at the mission and core values, collaborating with educators, promoting those core values and the mission across our 3 district and 10 schools. And then the meetings, empowering our leadership team. We have a very talented leadership team. There are a wealth of expertise in really providing the space and the empowerment for the team to lead that work. Sorry about that. And then lastly, indicator 7 is cultural proficiency. Again, leading stakeholders to develop and implement culturally responsive policies and practices that acknowledge the diverse backgrounds, identities, and strengths and challenges of administrators, students, and staff. So again, this is connected back to our strategic objective. And again, as I looked at the work and setting the indicators and goals, that has always been the document that I've looked at as kind of the beacon. And lastly, communications. Communications is always something that we're working on as a district. There's always room for improvement. Communication is a two-way partnership between messages sent and messages received. And really looking at, what are the models, the strong models that are context and audience specific, the written and verbal communications, and then again, seeking feedback around, are the communication mechanisms and vehicles getting the information to the people in the way that is helping them access the information. This is, again, one of those goals that is never done, and there's always room for improvement. And again, with advent of social media and new communication tools, it's something that we're looking at, and is something that I will continue to work on throughout this year. So that was a whirlwind tour of my 5 goals, the 4 standards, and the 8 objectives that I think are important to move forward. Would be happy to receive any feedback from the committee. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Great, thank you very much, Greg. Before we move on to questions and comments, I wanted to ask if you wanted to say anything about the possibility of some of the goals extending beyond the 1-year time frame. I know that we discussed that there is an option to do a 1-year or a 2-year evaluation, and I think our discussion with Joan was there also. It landed on continuing with the 1-year format, but with the understanding that this is a fairly ambitious and broad-ranging set of goals. And especially with the current circumstances, we don't know exactly how things are going to proceed. I know we're in a relatively, compared to the spring, a relatively stable place. But so I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that, just so that everybody has an expectation about achievement as related to the goals.
Sure. So I will say that the strategic objectives are multi-year goals. So the Vision 2026, it's going to take us multiple years to get there. And the strategic initiatives also will take us multiple years to accomplish those. And what I'm looking at is trying to accomplish the action steps within this year so that we're making forward progress in terms of making, achieving the strategic initiatives and strategic objectives. So by no means do I want to indicate that I think I will accomplish the strategic objectives or all of the strategic initiatives in 1 year. They're very ambitious and designed to be multi-year objectives and initiatives. However, some of the action steps are should be accomplished within a year's period of time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll go to the hands that are up. So Kelly, you're first.
Thank you. Yeah, that's basically, you just took what I was going to say, Katura. Like I was hoping that these were for multi-years, not for lack of belief that you could accomplish it, which I would not put it past you that you would be able to accomplish all this in a year, but despite with COVID and everything else going on. So I think you, as always, you've made a very well thought out plan. And if you think you can accomplish this and you think this is what you want to do, I fully support it. And I'm excited about the technology thing with the reducing of the paperwork. I like that one. That's my favorite.
Okay, thank you. Paul Butka.
Thanks, Katura. So Greg, certainly ambitious. I would certainly agree with what Katura and Kelly both said. But, the strategic goals by definition should take several years to accomplish. I don't want to pile on, but during your performance review process, we talked about a 360 sort of feedback mechanism being more formally put in place for you. And I didn't, although I saw some things about feedback mechanisms in the write-ups that you just provided us, it looked more like it was aimed at, more specific targets, educator feedback and maybe feedback for some of the administrators, but I didn't necessarily see one specifically designed for you. And although there's plenty already on the list, we did kind of agree that that would make it as well. So just kind of a reminder about that.
Yeah, so I'll just make a quick comment. That is, although it's not listed as action step, it can be, Paul. It's something that I am doing this year. And again, believe that if I'm asking anyone on the leadership to do something, I need to model, what that is. So that 360 feedback survey is something that I will be doing and actually look forward to getting feedback from administrators on. So I can add that without piling it on.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next is Kathleen Howland.
Yes, I greatly admire the goals each time. This has been very impressive to me. I very much appreciate your values, Greg. One of the things that struck me was how wonderful and relieving it was to hear the focus on wellness. As you know, that's why I ran for school committee in the first place, is that as a college professor, I was seeing such atrocious habits of mind, body, and spirit. My husband's school in Newton had 3 suicides in 1 year. 2 of them were middle schoolers. The anxiety and depression is through the roof. And so I find that I kind of react a little bit to the phrase high achievement, because the first thing that comes to my mind is at what cost? I also think that in terms of our students with special needs, that high achievement may not necessarily be within their reach, but being the best you, being the best holistic, grounded, centered, curious, passionate you really moves me more than high achievement. And I know in the scholarship that our Jazz Foundation gave, I opened up a record and it was all A's, and it made me really sad. It made me sad thinking, what of your growing up experiences did you give up to get that? And, this probably goes against the culture of, you got to get your kid into a good school and all of that. There's always going to be a right school. But I find the reaction to that phrase is something that I just wanted to ask you to consider. And I do appreciate that you would hear me in the way that I know you do. So thank you, Greg.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have Lauren.
Thank you very much. Greg, thank you for your presentation. I had a couple of questions. The first is under the strategic objective, equity of opportunity. So first of all, I think it's extremely timely, especially in the time of COVID. The word equity has been talked about in pretty much every single school district, especially in this time, making sure that all students are getting their needs met. I saw that under your action step, it said administer a baseline assessment to see what staff's current understanding of culturally responsive pedagogy is. Have you done that yet? Or is that something that will be done this year?
So that's something that we've started having conversations around, and we are actually leveraging the work of Assabet Valley Collaborative to help us with that. So it has not been done, and we're looking to do that at some point this fall through the leadership of Assabet Valley Collaborative and some of the resources that they have at the collaborative.
Okay, thank you very much. For PD offerings, I'm sure there's probably a lot to be done this year. Further out in the year, I think there's a March PD date. Do you know if any of the themes will focus around equity?
So one of the pieces that we've agreed to is that we're going to embed the theme of equity and throughout all professional development experiences. Okay. Thinking about faculty meetings. So not everything has to be 3 hours. It could be 20 minutes. It could be 30 minutes of a faculty meeting. It could be an hour, a first hour of a professional development day. So we're embedding it throughout the year in the various PD opportunities teachers have. And Stephanie, I don't know if you want to speak to the March day.
Well, I was going to reiterate what you said, that not only are we embedding it with faculty, but also with the leadership team. So when we bring the leadership team together, for example, on Monday, we have a leadership meeting, and we'll be engaging. Rhoda will be leading us in some of this work. In terms of March, the March PD Day will be a site-based professional development, and some of the schools have set their own goals related to this work around equity. So there will probably be a variety of different ways that schools are taking this on in March.
Great, thank you so much, Stephanie and Greg. And I had one more comment about standard 3, which I believe was about capital improvements. Sorry, I'm just scrolling. It's such a long document. It was, no, I'm sorry. That was something else. Standard 3 about family and community engagement. For this one, I noticed that in part of the indicator 5, it mentioned promoting continuous collaboration with families to support learning both at home and at school. So I guess I was just curious if this were to span more than this year, would that sort of still be part of that indicator, given that maybe we would hopefully all be back in school?
No, I think it does. It's pertinent now, but I think it's also enduring. I think it's something, that partnership, that homeschool connection that we've always talked about, is something that will endure and something that I think we'll learn a lot through this experience and this fall and moving forward. And those lessons will be continued. And because it's not just a 1-year goal, it's a multi-year, it's ongoing.
Great, thank you. I think that standard really just stood out the most to me. It's just so timely right now, making sure that the needs of all of our students are met, regardless of how they're being schooled. So I appreciated the verbiage in there. Thank you. I'm all set, Katura.
Okay, thank you. All right, that takes us to Jessica.
Hi, thanks for this, Greg. As you know, I'm all about like the communications and that kind of thing. So do you think one of the things that we've talked about in the past is, and I think COVID kind of upset the plan for this, but there was supposed to be somebody on staff whose half their job was to work on researching, ways of communicating, ways schools, kind of best practices. Do you think that will happen this school year? And should we, and when we look at our lists of like liaisons and groups that we're in, like I'm the person for that, like for Southborough School Committee, is that something that we can expect to kind of get going this year?
So that was part of our restructuring in terms of adding capacity to the Human Resources Department, but also thinking about what are those communication and PR needs that we've had as a district.
Mm-hmm.
The reality has been all of that person's time has been really around learning that new position in terms of HR work. And also the pandemic has really pushed that person really all in terms of HR. I do think it's an area we need to rethink about whether that was realistic in terms of expectations for that particular position, and rethink about, what are our needs in terms of communication and PR relations. Karen mentioned, the community advocate and getting the word out there around our music program. That takes a lot of dedicated effort. And if we had someone who could focus on that type of work, I think it would really help us streamline and be more coherent in our messaging, but more timely and more able to publicize the great things that are happening in our district. But I think that's more conversation for the future.
Do you think that's something that we can, because communications is, obviously we've had so many emails from the district. And it's been good. Like we've been getting a lot of information, but just being a marketing and communications professional, like I think about, maybe things that we could do in the short term, even without that person, even if we don't have a communications manager or director position until the next school year, there's probably things that we can do this year. I don't know if that would be some sort of, because I see a lot around communications in your plan, and I just want to make sure it doesn't get lost in the COVID shuffle, because it's just more and more important. And thinking about just the communications doesn't even have to be pushed out. Like one thing I sent to Roger that we actually never got to talk about because our schedules weren't aligning was, what if we just had a place on each school's website with all the important dates listed out instead of, because as a parent, I was having a hard time. I missed a webinar here and there because there were just so many different emails and, just kind of like maybe things that we could do in the short term as opposed, is there some way we can more formally talk about those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think that there's always room for improvement and growth. And again, I think it speaks to the fact that communication is a two-way. It takes two people to communicate. And then although we're sending out a lot of information, it doesn't mean the message has been received in a way that is helpful or useful or timely to a family. So I think getting family input and feedback around what types of communications are helpful, looking at those types of, like you just gave an example of, streamlining dates and events. So it's much more difficult to miss a date or an event.
Yeah.
Right now it's pretty easy. So I don't want to give the impression that we have to wait to have a communication, PR director, because we could be potentially waiting for a long time and no growth would be happening. So there's the here and now as well that we'll look at to make improvements. And I'd welcome, there's some expertise on the committee in terms of that area.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Jennifer.
Yeah, I guess my question is along the lines of what, it's probably no surprise what Jessica has said, because I've had lots of conversations about communication too. And, I think we really want to be able, or at least I can speak for myself, is to be able to support you in the administration and doing the jobs that you really need to do. And I feel like oftentimes around communication, having someone with a PR or that kind of experience can really help us decide. In other words, I think, so I guess basically what I'm saying is it would be great if we can have, when we do the budget process, for example, and you had mentioned, I think in one of those meetings that, that asking the principals for their wish list, what are, like, if you could ask and have anything, what kind of things would help you get at the goals that you want and prioritize those. And I'm wondering if we can add some of that to the things that you would need to accomplish those goals that you have. And I think particularly around communication, just given everything now, even navigating the social media stuff, because I have heard from, and I wrote this to you, but I've heard from a lot of parents who, there's a lot of stress and anxiety right now among everyone. And I just think it's beyond the scope of what one person can do. And I think it can take away from you and your ability to focus on these other things if you're having to constantly respond to feedback. So I do think that's a pretty important area, and ways in which we as a school committee can support you to be able to achieve those goals, even if it means we might have to invest some money or some of the budget into that. And so I guess like having a sense of, if you had a wish list that would help you achieve those goals, what would that look like? And then we can decide whether or not we're able to support those things.
Thank you. Just a quick comment on that. I think the intention is to have the operational budget subcommittees come together and really think about what are our budget priorities for FY22. And I think that fits nicely into that conversation. What do we want to accomplish? What's connected to the strategic plan? I think we've been operating on the current budget priorities for FY21 for some time now, because that was outlined in Vision 2020, and now it's time to relook and refocus and think about some of those ideas.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to be mindful of how we can support that too, because I think the goals that you listed were really good goals and good things to work with. So how can we all as a group support you in doing that is important.
Okay, I think that it looks like that takes care of all of the questions and comments. I don't see any other hands up. So I think that if it's what people want to do, we can vote on these. If there are any motions. I think we have to go by committee, so.
I'll make a motion for Northborough. Do we have to do the union too or no?
Yes.
I'll make a motion for Northborough and the union to accept the goals presented by Superintendent Martineau for the 2020-2021 school year.
And I will second for Northborough and the union.
I'll move the same for Southborough.
I'll move the same for the region.
I'll second for the region.
Do we have a second for Southborough?
I'll second for Southborough.
Okay. So the various chairs, I think, will take a vote. So I'll start with the union. Jessica?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Joan?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
And it's a yes for me.
For the region, we have the motion by Chris Covina, seconded by Paul Becca. Kathleen Palechko?
Yes.
John O'Shea,
Yes.
Dan Kalenda,
Yes.
welcome. Kathy Key,
Yes.
Kathleen Howland,
I think pending that language change, I would have to decline at this time in the hopes that that could happen. Sorry, Greg.
so, okay. So you're saying no?
I am.
Okay, Paul Desmond,
Yes.
Chris Covino,
Yes.
Paul Bucka,
Yes.
and Karen Ayers.
Yes.
And it passes in the affirmative. And Joan Frank, yes.
Okay, Northborough or Southborough?
So
I'll
for
go
South-
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Keith.
For Northborough, we have a motion to accept Superintendent Martineau's 2020-2021 goals as presented today, moved by Kelly Gannett and seconded by Joan Frank. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will take a roll call vote. Mrs. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett,
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri,
Yes.
and myself, Keith LaBelle, yes. The motion passes unanimously and the goals are accepted.
For Southborough, regarding the motion that's on the floor to accept the superintendent's goals, roll call vote, please. Katura,
Yes.
Kamali? Was that a yes?
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and I vote yes. It passes unanimously.
Okay. Joan, do you have your hand up to make a comment?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to make a reminder that in the normal years, in the normal process, that there will be probably 3 other combined meetings that we will be, Greg, usually in December, would be giving us an update on the goals. Probably one in probably around February, March, another one with an update, and or March or April, and then we would have the final one with a presentation of the evaluation in June. And so, taking in what Paul said, maybe Greg in those updates may have something on that 360 feedback, maybe in the December or maybe in the March as we go forward. So that was just to give an update to the new members, the process that we'll do, and then the final evaluation in June, which Katura and I will be sending out to you, and it'll be a document that you create and then send back. The region will send back to me, and the K-8 members would send back to Katura. And then we do a compilation of that, and all your evaluations are documents, but we just present in open session just a compilation of all of our evaluations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that summary. That's very helpful. All right. I don't see any other hands up. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. So I think we got a lot done. It's a little later than we thought, but we made it through everything. All right. So we can entertain motions to adjourn.
I will keep the region in open session because we're going to be going into our open session.
Okay.
And Greg, could we do a 5-minute recess?
Yes, and it is a different link, so.
Yeah, okay. But we can stay in session, correct? Okay.
So I'll move for Southborough to adjourn.
I second that.
All right, for Southborough, then roll call vote. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Katura,
Yes.
Kamali,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we are adjourned at 8:08 p.m.
Okay, Northborough.
I move for Northborough to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to adjourn for Northborough School Committee. Roll call, please. Mrs. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Gannett,
Yes.
Mrs. Tagliaferri,
Yes.
and myself, Keith LaBelle, yes. Passes unanimously, and we are adjourned at 8:09.
Okay,
Kelly moves for the union.
We have a
I'm
second
sorry.
for the union.
I'll second for the union. Who moved it?
Kelly.
Kelly. Okay, great. So I'll go down my list. Jessica,
Yes.
okay. Roger,
Yes.
Joan,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Keith,
Yes.
and it's a yes for me. So the union is now adjourned at 8:09. All
Good
right.
night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.